It's weird sitting here talking about Astrobot because I'm sure in like another week or so this game is going to be completely forgotten because the people hyping this thing up, they don't play platforming games, they don't respect them, they don't care about them at all. Again, you can clearly see this by looking at like the Twitter posts, like trying to make the comparison, like, oh, Astrobot, it's the best 3D platform we've gotten since Psychonauts 2. Like what? Psychonauts 2 was awful. Let's not mince words about this. And I did play Psychonauts 2, by the way. Don't try to give me that like, well, you didn't play it. Like I did play Psychonauts 2. I made a review of it. A very negative review that I very strongly stand by. Psychonauts 2 was terrible, but people propped it up because it was from a Western studio, from woke developers. You know, Mr. Shitface himself, Tim Schafer, right? They tried to sell this game as a masterpiece, in spite of all the retcons, in spite of all the lore tidbits that didn't make any sense, the pacing problems, the horrible platforming, like the new mechanics, you know, Raz somehow being NTR'd, like somehow being made like a beta male cuck when he was a Chad before. Like again, Psychonauts 2 was terrible, right? It was awful. And like I'm really tired of like people like trying to like defend it as like some modern just really good lower budget 3D platformer. It's not. There are games on Steam made by like probably like 10, 20 people that are better than this, better than that. And I'm sure Astrobot is the same way, right? Again, Astrobot is really interesting because I don't think I've seen like the Sony Defense Force hype up a Sony 3D platformer like this since like Knack came out. And to be fair, they haven't really had one since then, but the Knack thing is one of the most embarrassing segments in Sony's history because they really they really tried to push this narrative that Knack was better than Super Mario 3D World, that it outperformed it, that it was like the reason the PS4 was so successful. It wasn't. Knack was like this huge deal, man. It sold out. It's this phenomenon. It's PlayStation's new IP, and of course, you know. It's mostly known today because of Donkey just dunking on it, right? Knack, baby, yeah! Like, here comes the money! Here comes the money! Like, again, that's what Knack is known for today. But the thing that people really don't understand, and the reason why Knack being such a dud was such a big deal, was because it was hyped up that way. It was seriously promoted as a serious alternative to Super Mario 3D World and The Wonderful 101, both of which have gone on to be considered like all-time classics and just really good at what they do. Knack was just a complete joke from the onset, right? What about Knack was so special and interesting that it deserved all the praise and attention it got from journalists, right? Nothing. People hyped this game up because it was a Sony thing. You know, it was shocking to me reading about this and Octodad in like Game Informer back in the day, because this was the last time I ever had my subscription, that period when it came out, and I was just so taken aback by it. Like, we were getting so many good Nintendo games that past year, and the gaming industry decided to hyperfixate on Knack, you know, as like the next big 3D platformer from Sony. And when the game actually came out, they immediately moved on to the next thing, right? You know, a lot of what drives this channel is resentment over that specific thing, right? Like, again, the reason why I upload videos every day, the reason why I hate Sony, and the reason why I'm ragging on Astrobot so much, it's because of Knack. It was really that bad. It was appalling. And it really needs to be understood among like the general public is that like game journalist corruption has always been prevalent in this industry. It has nothing to do with wokeness. I do think we kind of need to put our foot down on this on this specific matter because I kind of distanced myself from the anti-woke community because all of them are grifters and retards. But like again, like game journals have always been downplaying superior Nintendo games in order to hype up inferior PlayStation ones. Usually hiding behind this veneer that like, well, it's a more mature story, so that makes it better. Like they don't actually talk about like the gameplay or the mechanics or like the series at all. And like people don't even really notice or care when these series like fall off by the wayside, right? Look at what happened with PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, right? Who do you know who seriously wants them to make a sequel to that? You know, like who do you know who seriously wants them to make a sequel to Killzone Shadowfall or Jack and Daxter or Crash Bandicoot? Like nobody cares. When they produced Crash 4, it completely bombed. And that was after the extremely well-received popular remake, The Dark Souls of Platformers, says the group of people who don't play or care about platformers, like, at all. Like, that trilogy only sold because of nostalgia. As an actual standalone release, Crash 4 could not compete with the far superior Nintendo consoles, with the far superior platformers on Nintendo, right? And it's the same deal with Astrobot. I said this when Astrobot came out on, VR, like the last one that came out. Like, again, that's another thing people don't know about Astrobot, is that this is actually a sequel. Like, I remember NeoGAF, like, doing the same thing they're doing now. Like, oh, Astrobot. Oh, PlayStation Studio is some of the best talent in gaming. Are they, though? Like, what have they produced, like, ever that's on par with what Nintendo does, right? Gravity Rush, completely bombed. Super overhyped. I'm sure it's not completely terrible, but again, like it's Gravity Rush. Like again, it's a meme among PlayStation fans how most people don't even know Cat's name. Like you look at these lineup of PlayStation titles, right? All these characters that are supposedly iconic, and all of them pale in comparison to even like some lesser known Nintendo characters, right? I think it's safe to say that someone like Captain Falcon probably has a more dedicated fan base and following than Kratos. And that sounds ridiculous, but when you really take into account just how popular the character is due to brands like Super Smash Bros. And how hotly requested like F-Zero is to return, I don't think that's such a far-fetched to make, especially not when you start going for more and more popular characters. Samus Aran, who everybody seems to know, Donkey Kong, the Super Mario Brothers, Pokemon, like the list goes on and on and on and on. Like, what PlayStation characters aren't anywhere near the level of quality of Nintendo ones, right? And Astrobot, you can tell just by looking at the design of the character that, like, this is not an inspired thing. Nobody's going to look at this thing and just be like, oh, this is going to be the next 3D platformer star. You know how, like, Sonic has, like, this really cool, like, unique design that, like, sets him apart from Mario, right? He was designed to be Mario's opposite, like, to appeal to, like, edgy kids, right? He's more relatable. He's more mischievous, right? He has, like, the spines. He's an anthro. He goes fast, right? Sonic has all these things that, like, set him apart from Mario, made him different. Like, the robot, it looks like Monita's retarded cousin, right? Like how in Nintendo Land, like, Monita follows you around and, like, she explains, like, how the games work to you, and, like, she's basically the mascot for that game. Like, Astrobot looks like a less evolved version of her. How, like, Wally is, like, some trash compacting, like robot in a post-apocalyptic Earth, while, like, Eve is, like, this gorgeous, sleek, futuristic thing, right? That can fly through space and just can do all these things. I don't understand. Like, how does a love story behind robots work? But anyway, WALL-E was not a good movie, by the way. But like, Pixar is not a good studio, to be honest with you. But anyway, it's like that, right? Manita, a character that nobody remembers or talks about, is instantly more recognizable and more memorable than Astrobot. You know, Nintendo Land now has a theme park. Manita inspired a theme park. A Wii U exclusive Nintendo Land inspired a theme park. Astrobot will never, ever have an accomplishment on that level. It is an irrelevant character in an irrelevant 3D platformer on an irrelevant console that is being sold to people who don't even like video games.